As we find ourselves rewatching Sinners again and again, wondering if we'll ever get something quite like this cinematic gem, the rumor mill has been spinning nonstop. And guess what? Word on the street is a sequel might actually be happening. I know. I'm way too excited. But let's dive into the news first, and then we'll talk about what a sequel could possibly bring to the table. First things first, this was not planned at all. In fact, the director Ryan Coogler previously stated, "I wanted the movie to feel like a full meal, all of it there. That was always my intention." Meaning, there was never supposed to be a sequel. The original film tied up every loose end and left no lingering questions. It felt complete. But now, it seems like Ryan might be ready to serve dessert. And baby, I'm a sucker for a good dessert. Count me in. In earlier interviews, both Ryan and Michael talked about the possibility of a sequel. When asked about a potential prequel focusing on Smoke and Stack's adventure in Chicago or Stack's life as a vampire, our beloved Michael looked genuinely thrilled. He gave a clear green light, saying he'd always be up for it, but ultimately, it's Ryan who makes the final call. Then, Ryan chimed in with something interesting. "My favorite movies are ones where it feels like a world was happening before and a world is gonna happen after." Michael pushed a bit further, saying, "Yeah, that you care about the characters and that you want to see what happened to them, what happened before." Honestly, Michael has always seemed a little more open to continuing the story than Ryan. And I don't blame Ryan, he crafted a complete, satisfying narrative. He probably didn't want to mess with a good thing. But let's be real, Sinners has such a rich world and so many compelling characters, it feels like there's still so much story left to tell. And don't worry, I'm about to dive into those possibilities in just a bit. Since its release on April 18th, Sinners has grossed around $340 million worldwide, and audiences have absolutely fallen in love with it. So naturally, Warner Bros. Isn't about to let that magic fade away. According to a new listing in Production Weekly, Sinners 2 is officially marked as an in-development project. So what could the second installment be about? Stack and Mary's life as vampires. In the post-credit scene, we see Stack and Mary paying Sammy a visit decades later. They show up with an offer, but Sammy politely declines. Instead, he plays music for them just as they asked. That moment cracks the door wide open and shows us something important. These characters, the survivors of that chaotic, unforgettable night, have been living separate lives ever since. In a potential sequel, we could follow two parallel storylines. One might center around Sammy, who, let's be honest, was the emotional core of the first movie. He had layers, trauma, and a quiet strength that made us root for him. The other storyline could focus on Mary and Stack, exploring their new lives as vampires and how they navigate the world after what went down that night. At some point, these threads could collide again, and we might finally get to see what really happens after that eerie reunion in the post-credits scene. One Reddit user even suggested that Sinners 2 could shift genres the way Terminator and Alien sequels did, taking the original foundation and building something bold and new on top of it. The sequel, they say, could dive into Stack and Mary's lives post-transformation, adding elements of action, high-stakes drama, and even social commentary. We could see them face off against racists, the ultra-wealthy, other vampires, or maybe even supernatural beings from different cultures. Would a storyline like that hook you in? Because honestly, I'm intrigued. Let's talk about it in the comments. Remick origin story. Now this is the idea that excites me most. Another Reddit user suggested that we dive into Remick's backstory, and I couldn't agree more. Remick wasn't your average villain. He wasn't just another wicked white man archetype. He was layered. He was Irish. He had seen centuries of change, violence, and survival. I actually made a full video breaking down Remick's character. You can check it out after this. But this Reddit user said it best. Remick talks about surviving the Christianization of Ireland and that would be a cool setting for a vampire movie, making it a metaphor for how religious missionaries are parasitic in a way. Thanks to Spotify Easter eggs, we kind of have information about Remick's past, but I'd love to see him slowly turning into the villain we see in Sinners, an Irishman who's been through hell, becoming the colonizer himself. That's a story I'd be crazy to watch. I still love Sammy, and I'd definitely watch Stack and Mary's journey unfold, but Remick's origin story? That would be crazy, don't you think? So what do you think the sequel could explore? More Sammy, vampire drama with Stack and Mary, a full-blown origin story for Remick, or something completely unexpected? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and be sure to check out the next video where I dive deeper into Remick's character.